Ready?
1 second.
It's a recording.
It's recording. Hello and welcome to Unforced Error, episode 33. Today we are here to talk about nothing, and so we bid you farewell. Wait, didn't Wimbledon just happen? Jim, how are you today?
I'm okay. I'm not brilliant, I'll be frank. I don't want to burden our listeners with the tensions in my day. We've all had tensions, I suppose.
Yeah,
But more importantly, how are you? And congratulations on winning a major tournament recently.
hey, thanks. I'm happy about that for sure.
Yeah, did you think you'd win the tournament?
I always believe I can win a tournament, but it really depends on how each match goes.
And your opponent was a very good one, but you still beat him.
Yeah, Florent is a good...
No,
it's a good
I thought we were talking about the wooden championships.
Oh, that is...
Explain.
That is the...
You won two big tournaments recently.
No, one. The one that counts is really the one with the wooden rackets. That's the best tournament in Brighton, by the way, guys. It happens once a year, and it's going to expand soon, isn't it?
Yeah, so the concept basically is once a year, David and myself play each other on grass, which is very unusual, but that's not the only twist. The other twist is we play with vintage wooden rackets and wear vintage clothing as well.
And even used vintage balls.
Exactly. So we played on a really hot day. I think it was the day before when the heat wave proper started, and we played at midday. And I was doing quite well. I think I was ready to go 5-3 up, wasn't I, David?
Unbelievable. Yeah, I felt that the momentum was all with you. And then suddenly, finally, a shed of light came through. And I was able to, by the way, win the first time because you were the champion from last year.
Yeah, I was gutted, but you played well. It took you a while to get into it with your racket. My racket was very good. You bought me a racket from a second-hand charity shop, but it was really
Such a good... I was
feel there
intimidated by it, by the
I
racket.
didn't feel there was that much difference between me playing with a wooden racket and me playing with a graphite racket, which we did afterwards.
Yeah, you adapted immediately, like instantly. It felt like you were connected with the racket. Took me a while.
No practice either. I didn't have time to practice.
Exactly.
You won another championship as well, of course, which was the tournament that you organised, round robin, then knockout stages. So
St. Anne's Tennis Challenge.
Yeah, so
Very
you're
good.
doing well, aren't you?
Let's go.
Absolutely. And you've been to France. Was there anything tennis related that you did on your holiday in France?
Absolutely nothing. I was on the
right.
beach following my daughter.
So you didn't see any tennis courts or saw nothing tennis related?
I saw houses that are like really great mansions, and one of them had a tennis court, and I really wanted it.
Oh, that's a
I
shame.
wanted to invade, jump through the wall and stay there for the holidays.
But it's good to get a break from tennis sometimes, isn't it?
Absolutely right. Yeah.
Recharge your batteries.
Yeah, it's good to take a break, isn't it? Because the passion comes stronger.
You can't
next
play
time.
365 days a year, can you?
You can't.
No.
It's impossible.
Yeah, even you.
Unless-
Even you can't.
Even. So we have something to talk about, don't we?
We always do.
Which comes quite late, isn't it? 3 weeks since it happened?
Yeah, I think Wimbledon finished the weekend in July the 15th, wasn't it? Something like that. So we're now on the 24th. So yeah, it's been probably 2 weeks.
Since the final.
Since the final, yeah.
Yeah. So what are we to talk about today, Jim? You normally do the introductions.
I think the theme is really, Wimbledon has done so many things right over the years, and to build up such a great tournament, it does the right things. But what is it not doing? What Wimbledon instead of Wimbledon? In terms of, I feel it's lost a bit of its magic this year. Would you agree?
Yeah, there's some things to be disappointed about, aren't there, about Wimbledon this year, including heartbreaks as well in some losses. but as well in a little bit more to the political side, which is boring, to be honest. I wish that we didn't have to talk about these things.
But UFE is two guys talking about the things that commentators don't talk about. And it kind of got skirted over. I think Andrew Castle, at least once a day, would go, there are no Russian players here. And personally, I think that's the right decision. And he'd say it once, and he wouldn't really get challenged too much, would he? Did any other commentators offer an alternative view when he said that?
I don't remember with Andrew Castle, but I do remember McEnroe mentioned it, didn't it? So...
the Russians.
Exactly. I mean, where...
the elephants in the room.
Yeah. Where do we start?
So, come on, would it have made that much difference, Medvedev and Rublev? Would they have pulled up any trees and actually gone to the final? Same with the women, the Russian women, Azarenka, yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Oh, yes, definitely. We missed those players. And special of all, I think
so.
What I missed most was fairness to all. And I'm not sure it's there. Even though I know war times are strange, I think that it was a bad decision. And
Well, yes. I mean, Medvedev, ironically, was doing pretty well in the grass court tournaments he entered.
yeah.
That's the real irony. He's never really done very well at Wimbledon. But he won a few matches
I
and got
had
to a few
hope.
finals.
Yeah, I had hope.
He knew then in the warm-ups he wasn't going to play at Wimbledon. Maybe the pressure was off. But you never know with Medvedev. He might have gone deep. He might have had a deep run. Stranger things happen. Rublev, I don't see much difference between Sinner and Rublev. And Sinner went far in the tournament, didn't he?
He did.
He made the quarterfinals.
Yeah.
But we'll come back to what happened in the women's, because although we've said there were no Russians at the tournament, maybe there were some Russians. So we're going to hold that thought and maybe come back to it when we review the ladies' tournament.
Spot on.
So a great tournament from the men's side. I mean, did you think there were many great matches?
I watched some good matches. I'm actually looking at the draw.
There weren't many great early round matches. There are so many seeds. The top players are kept apart, really, aren't they? I think looking at the first round, maybe the obvious one was Wawrinka versus Sinner. And you thought that's a good clash because Wawrinka was a top player.
Yes.
He's never been great on grass, but I think he won the first set. So that was a kind of standout match, maybe from the first round. But other than that, the top players were kind of kept apart until the third round when there was fireworks. I'm talking about a Greek versus an Australian.
Oh, yes, of course. Kyrgios, the whole story goes with Kyrgios until the end, until the final. But I was really glad to see Kyrgios beat Tsitsipas and show who's the boss between them.
Yes, I agree. Do you think that match should have been played later in the tournament? Do you think it was ridiculous that two such good grass court players, because Tsitsipas did well in the pre-Wimbledon tournaments, and as a top player in Kyrgios, should they have met so early?
Yeah, it's a shame when there's two of the favorites that meet so early in the tournament, because you really want to see them at the end. But I suppose at least it paid off to watch the match, because it was quite entertaining.
Well, in pure tennis terms, which is only half the story, 4 sets. Kyrgios beat Tsitsipas in 4 sets, but it felt like a 5-set match. It was tense. You know, both of them were risking disqualification. Ironically, Kyrgios' behaviour was probably worse, but Tsitsipas came closer to disqualification, firing a ball at the scoreboard, firing a ball into the crowd, with Kyrgios rather ungallantly perhaps grassing him up. The post-press, very cold handshake between the two at the end.
Super cold.
And the press conference where the press basically finally needled out of Tsitsipas that he thought Kyrgios was probably the school bully and probably is still the school bully. So, yeah, dramatic. But taking away all the pantomime stuff, I think there's some great tennis in it. It was very tense. I think it was played under the roof. And I'm very glad I think the tournament needed that. There weren't many great draws in the first 2 rounds, 3 rounds. So I think it's great that occasionally you get 2 top players playing so early.
It brings that excitement from early stage tournament. Very true. And some people really get lucky for the ticket they bought. I remember watching that match actually now, and the sequence of events. In the end of the match, most people that text me about it were actually thinking, because of what they saw in the press conference, they thought that Kyrgios was the innocent. and that Tsitsipas came across as the guilty one, but he was completely the other way around.
Yeah,
Kyrgios
I mean,
was a bully for the whole match.
It's a very clever trait of a
whole
bully, making the other person seem like the villain.
Yeah,
It's very cunning, but
because he was unlucky. He threw a ball to the crowd, and that was enough to turn things around. And he was the first one to get warned, which doesn't make any sense.
and Tsitsipas was actually hitting the ball at Kyrgios a few times, which is perfectly legal,
It,
but it probably
really
doesn't
is,
get the crowd on your side
as well.
too much. Do you think Kyrgios's behaviour in that match and throughout the tournament, do you think it was too much?
I think there was a couple of matches at least that it was not right.
Agreed.
And I wish that he'd stop because it's a little bit too much, really. Because they have the cameras and the audio there. You can really see the bullying he gives the umpires is unfair.
And lines people too, and members of the crowd, you know, trying to get someone chucked out because they've had 14 drinks.
Yes.
I think if they were goading Kyrgios...
And she said she had only 3.
Yeah, well, that's quite a few. Depends what it is, really, doesn't
It's
it?
true. And
double
the level of resistance, yeah.
Yeah, and the volume of the drink.
Yeah.
But I think he went too far sometimes, just baiting the umpire, keeping a constant running dialogue going.
It's just constant.
But so exciting to watch. I mean, I just love the fact that he could be 40 love down on his serve, and then 30 seconds later, he's game point up because he just bounces the ball once and serves.
It's just so good.
And it was just funny watching players, his opponents dashing round, ready to receive.
I know.
And wouldn't it have been great if he'd faced Nadal again? Because Nadal is the complete opposite.
Yeah, you know, the other not 2 matches that he complained, he was actually very professional. And he's connecting a lot with a lot of matches these days.
Yeah.
More than before. And I think that's one of the reasons he got to the final. Because he was just more composed. Most of the time he was very professional. I've never seen him like that.
Do you think not playing Nadal, having the day off, helped him or hindered him in the final?
Yeah, I wish I knew the answer to that question. If I was a player, let me put myself in that position, I would prefer to have played. Not only because I would have played against a legend. You don't want to go to the final like that. You want to play the legend and beat him.
Yeah.
And then have that rhythm and that confidence from that win to then win in the final.
Get that
It
momentum.
might be a gap.
Yeah.
It might be a bad gap. Who knows?
Yeah. And what did you think of the final? How did you think Kyrgios acquitted himself in the final?
The final wasn't bad. It wasn't the full excitement I was looking for, but it was a good final, I would say. Kyrgios started at maximum level almost. And he played so well. Everything was working. And if he can play at that level. But then it was a bit disappointing because, again, that was one of at least the 2 or 3 matches that he changed his behavior towards everything and then paid the price.
Do you think he seemed a bit flat? I think he seemed a bit flat in some other matches too. Like, my theory is, I think the better matches, the more exciting, closer matches, come later in the day. And I think so many matches which are flat and a bit disappointing. I did find the final a bit disappointing. It's because they're played in the blazing heat of the day and one player gets on top after a while and then that's it. I think a lot of classic Wimbledon matches come, I think, quite late in the evening.
Mm-hmm. I like
Crazy
that.
theory or not?
No, I like that. I mean, you know how I like tennis in the evenings, in the nights.
Do you think your matches, yourself, the best matches you've played, most exciting, closest, have come later in the day rather than in the middle of the day?
Only because it's within indoors and it's always the night that we have to book.
Yes.
Because it's more spectacular and fast.
I mean, I'll explain a bit more. I think in the middle of the day, blazing sunshine, you've got to cope with actually throwing up in the sunlight, which isn't easy.
I don't like it too. I would definitely rather play late afternoon.
Yeah.
And that's so much better. People already had some drinks. They're not stuffed up from the food.
I think players' biorhythms are kind of not so good just after lunch anyway. I think you're more the hunter-gatherer thing. You're more ready for that final kill of the day late in the day.
I agree 100%.
But I can understand Wimbledon, you know, if they said, let's play the final at 6 o'clock in the evening, well, what if the rain comes down? You know, it's going to have delays. What if it's a 4 or 5 hour match? Are people going to get the tube back? So it's tricky from that point of view. But let's rewind to the quarterfinals. Nadal versus Fritz.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see that match? Would you say that was the classic match of the tournament? Or was it Tsitsipas versus Kyrgios? What was your match of the tournament?
Ooh,
We're also looking at Sinner versus Djokovic.
Exactly. I almost feel that all the matches in this tournament, more or less, I might be forgetting something, but how do I put this? Even a five-setter like Djokovic-Sinner had something sad about it, because Sinner just disappeared.
Yeah.
Some of the matches ended like that. It just reminded me of that. Maybe Goffin-Tiafoe was a little bit more interesting because of that.
In some good matches.
Yeah, and it was more back and forth and etc. Some of these five setters like Sinner, Djokovic, it was like, okay, Djokovic has done it now. We know. It's done.
I can remember Sinner going 2 sets up and the camera was on Djokovic, and Djokovic just kind of smiled and shook his head like, oh my God, I've got to win in 5 sets now, and I will.
Yeah.
And he did, and it was inevitable. I mean, when he goes 2 sets down,
exactly the way he says
I'm very rarely worried for him. I just think he'll do it, and he did it quite comfortably. I think it was a break of serving. None of them went to a tie break or 7-5. Whereas I think Fritz Nadal was a different kettle of fish. I think it was Nadal was clearly injured, and it was, can Fritz just follow this up and just, can he finish off this Rasputin character? Or can this Rasputin just have enough life in him left to avoid the kill and kill Fritz himself? But I think that was a massive opportunity for Fritz. He'd beaten Nadal in the heat on a hard court about a month ago when Nadal was less injured. And it's great for Nadal, shows how great he is, that even when injured and not serving at full capacity, he could still do aces and service winners and still win. But Fritz must be kicking himself.
Yeah, that was probably the most dramatic match of the tournament, maybe. It ended up in that super tiebreak at the end.
Yes.
Very disappointing super tiebreak, by the way.
Are you like me with super tiebreaks?
We are.
I always forget. One player gets to 7. I think, why isn't he or she celebrating? And it always catches me out.
Yeah, disappointing. And all the commentators were agreeing with it. Come on, guys.
Yeah, they were. I think with all the changes at Wimbledon.
Oh, no.
There were quite a few changes. All the commentators were going, and this is a good change. There was no divergence of opinion. I think the Champions tiebreak is a bad move for Wimbledon.
It's not good at all.
No, it's a real shame.
Too bad. So, congratulations to Kyrgios then. Are you overall happy about what he did?
I am. I mean, his behaviour was pretty appalling, and I shouldn't like him. I should be cheering on the other guy, but I can't help it.
You can't help it.
I cannot help wanting him to stay in the tournament, and if he'd gone out before the final, I would have lost a lot of interest. I know it's wrong.
Well put.
You can't choose your heroes. I know also he's got a domestic abuse thing hanging over him, which was a big thing for a lot of tennis neutrals and tennis fans. I mean, innocent until proven guilty. I really hope he is. I hope justice is done. That's the most important thing. Obviously, because domestic abuse is an appalling thing, but that made him unpopular. I mean, regardless of that, the way he was shouting in his box, he doesn't have a coach. It was very, very tiresome watching that. He reminds me of Nastase. He's a Romanian player going back years, very talented, kind of trick shots. I do think, this is my prediction, I think that was his big chance, but hey, against Djokovic, very tough. But I think that might be his last Grand Slam final or deep run. I think this is a one-off. I think when the Medvedevs and the Rublevs come back, I think it was a good draw for Kyrgios. He did very well to beat Tsitsipas. That was his moment in the sun. I think that might be the last of him.
Yeah.
Bold prediction. I know other people will disagree.
No, I really felt what you were saying.
I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah,
but,
I hope so too. I really do, because, I mean, the guy is the full package in terms of entertainment, isn't it? He's different from everybody else. Medvedev is the closest and is, to be honest, the most likable, in my opinion, because of his bluntness, but still he's not
I missed Medvedev, definitely.
Too rude. But there's something so dramatic and entertaining about Kyrgios, and it makes all the difference. Even against any legend, people are looking at him for entertainment during the match.
Was he the player you wanted to win the men's singles?
He was.
Out of all the draw?
Him and Alcaraz.
What happened to Alcaraz?
Yeah, here we go.
Yes, Sinner, wasn't it? Sinner
beat him, and convincingly. Sinner was just on fire, and again, Alcaraz is kind of showing a little bit that he does have those difficult days that he can't tackle
Well, maybe next year will be different because he didn't play any warm-up tournaments, but then I think he said he was injured, so he couldn't play any warm-up tournaments. But it's essential if you're starting out, and the same with Swiatek, who we'll get onto later. The players who didn't play the proper grass court warm-up tournaments, who just opted for exhibition matches at Hurlingham, by and large, apart from the Djokovic, who is the exception who proves the rule, they don't do too well. You need some warm-up. There's an extra week's gap between the French Open and the Wimbledon. Use it.
Yeah, you completed it right because you said Djokovic at the end. There are players that do that kind of magic.
Yeah.
And that's what I hoped for Alcaraz and for some of these youngsters that come in, that they have that magic. Some of them, like Alcaraz, is definitely showing he does. But who knows?
Here's a question a few people have brought up. Should it have been when Nadal withdrew, and how gutting must that have been for Fritz, when Nadal withdrew from the semi-final?
It's unbelievable.
A few people have suggested to me, this isn't my idea, that Fritz should have been reinstated for the semi-final.
Yeah, I don't agree.
No, I don't agree, but it's interesting. Has anyone mentioned that to you?
Yes, I think we even talked about it. I have sentiment for this. It's very disappointing if a player wins and then he withdraws.
Yeah.
It should come from the player saying like, I forfeit my match even though I already won it.
Yeah.
Can I do that?
Yeah.
But of course they wouldn't allow it. What about UK's hope in men, Norrie?
Oh, we're moving on to the UK section.
I don't know.
So
we haven't...
cue some incidental music before this next section of the show, because this is what people have really tuned on for. During, I must say, dear listeners, during Wimbledon, there are a few WhatsApp messages from David, I think, passed on from Stephen saying, was the message, I wish there was a separate channel for all the British men's matches because I really don't want to watch them.
That was a good one from Steve-O.
It was a good... Did I represent that correctly? Is that what Stephen said?
Definitely is, yeah. Well remembered because it was so well said. Yeah, one of the stadiums just for the UK entertainment.
Do you think that the BBC concentrates too much on British matches? Do you understand why the BBC does it? They kind of think there's more interest. But Stephen proves the point. I mean, he's British, I suppose. I mean, he's got Greek heritage and Scottish heritage.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's fed up with it. I think a lot of tennis fans like to see the best matches. It doesn't mean the matches featuring their countryman or woman. Definitely.
Has a TV station and has a tournament. You must support your locals. It does make sense. But there's, a fine line to when exaggeration starts.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit too much, definitely. It tires you, especially when they have, number 3 or 4 in the world versus the number 10. And, number 3 is a good player, might be Tsitsipas or Zverev or something. And they break from that match and go to an almost unknown UK player on BBC One. It's unfair, even though they offer you the option to press the red button and choose which court.
I've always found the match selection a bit weird on the BBC.
On the internet is always
They often
better.
don't feature the match, which I think is the most exciting. You have to dig around on the red button or whatever.
Yes, exactly.
And kind of desperately search for it. And they have a strange idea of what the best matches are. They're almost trying to tell you what the best match is, but you've got to...
You said it. That's exactly it.
But getting back to your original question about the British effort at Wimbledon, it wasn't bad. It was respectable. A few qualifiers, quite good people qualifying. Raducanu won a tough match in the first round.
Yeah, that's true. Raducanu is out of the equation.
Murray expected big things of him, but then isn't as good.
Yeah.
Norrie, I expected Norrie to go quite far. I predicted before each Wimbledon. I do a wall chart and predict, and I had him going through to
That's cool.
the quarterfinals, actually, not the semi-finals.
You have to send me a picture of
Just
that.
ripped it up stupidly.
No, next time.
Yeah, next time I definitely will.
I gotta see that.
But I got 3 of the 8 men's quarterfinalists correct, which isn't great, really, is it? I only got 3 out of 8. But I got the winner right. I did predict Djokovic. It was great. Norrie got through. I would say Goffin losing is on a par with Fritz losing to Nadal. those were matches Fritz and Goffin should have won.
I was so on the side of Goffin that
I was actually. I don't mind Norrie. I like him. But I just had a feeling, Goffin, this could be your year. You know, you could go through.
yeah.
I really do.
That's true. I really like Goffin's personality, and he's a good player to watch, and it was a shame when he lost that match. And so it is the men's Wimbledon tournament. Overall, it was not one of the most exciting for me.
No, I think Wimbledon...
The men's,
yes.
at least for now.
And I think Wimbledon needs decent final to almost gloss over the rest of the tournament and ends on a bang. And I don't think it was a great final. I've got nothing against 4-set or 3-set finals. You can have some really good 3-set or 4-set matches. But I don't think this was. I just got the feeling Djokovic was more likely to stay in the point longer. He would retrieve good shots from Kyrgios, whereas Kyrgios wasn't really retrieving Djokovic's good shots. And I don't think the outcome was in much serious doubt.
It was again kind of a feeling of inevitability.
Yes.
You know, it comes with style, because what you're saying about Djokovic, when he does that look, going to the bench 2 sets down, and he says to himself, okay, I'm going to have to run, I'm going to have to do it. I wanted to win easy. It's not happening, but now it's still mine.
It's like he's missed the bus, but he's still left himself plenty of time to get where he wants on time.
You can feel that in him, that he can do it. If he truly wants it, he has the ability to. Against anyone.
He can win two of 3 different ways, really.
Yep. Like defending match points against Federer and Nadal and still winning the tournament.
Yeah, incredible. But we've moved away from those days. His new habit is losing the first set.
Yeah.
But it means nothing.
Yeah, it's really incredible.
They'll have to change the rules to kind of give others a chance. Maybe they should make it best of 3 sets. And it would be a bit more of a squeaky bum time for him because he does lose the first set. But I bet if they change the rules, he'd win the first set.
Yeah, exactly. I think Djokovic definitely deserves the mention and the congratulations, because he's a true champion, and he's 21 Grand Slams, 1 under Nadal.
And 1 over Roger.
And 1 over Roger.
So
Roger is being the forgotten now.
He's now in a silver medal place, and he might stay that way because it's looking like the US Open, they've clarified, you'll need to be vaccinated if you're not a US citizen to come into the country.
I really hope that changes.
So he said he's not going to be vaccinated. It's a principal thing.
Of course not. Why would
fair
he
play
change
to him.
that?
That's a very pure reason to do it, I suppose.
I wouldn't
and the
do it
Australian
either.
Open, I think, because of his run in last year, I think it might well be he's not let in. So we might next see him in the French Open, which of course Nadal always wins. So
I hope not.
Yeah, I hope not too. I hope someone different wins it. Maybe Djokovic.
So, what about the...
Let's talk about women.
Women. Down. Down.
So, David, you know far more about women than I do. You kick off.
That sounded...
You've had more experience with women, watching women.
Definitely. Definitely.
One-on-one, sometimes doubles.
No, I'm not. That's not me. It's not me.
It was another David.
Exactly, yes. It's another David. Where's that guy? It's
I
definitely
like
not
that
me.
other David.
Yeah, but definitely not.
Yeah.
Okay, so going back to the tennis, I would like to start by saying another new Grand Slam winner.
Yes.
How about that?
Yeah.
I didn't expect that. I thought Swiatek was going to win everything from now on and eternity.
Did you? I must say, in the hindsight's a wonderful thing, I didn't think she'd win Wimbledon. I was surprised everyone made her the red hot favourite. She hadn't played any pre-Wimbledon tournaments. She looked a bit shaky sometimes in the French Open, and sometimes she looked brilliant and played brilliantly. I just think she hasn't earned the right to be the favourite yet.
I agree with that, although, of course, the pressure was on, man.
She's never really shone at Wimbledon before, has she? I know
No, never.
she's still
And
young.
she actually was playing very well. She just lost, but definitely shaky. And I think that amazing, how many, was it 36 matches in a row? She's tied with Venus Williams, I think, or she overcome by one. So she has the record. I don't remember that. We have to check that out. You could feel the pressure in her. She was feeling it. But this to say that we have a new Grand Slam champion.
We do, and say her name, David.
Rybakina, and that's not even the best way to say it.
That's better than I can manage.
I hope so.
And were you aware of Rybakina before the
I
tournament?
was, because, she's a very pretty face. And then she has a power game, really powerful shots. So, yeah, she came across a few times, and she shines from time to time.
Well, yes,
in tournaments.
Before COVID, she was on a great run, and really people were noticing her. Then when COVID pandemic came along, her form dropped off quite a bit. But now she's way back. She's 23 years old, and I would like to say she's the first Kazakhstan Grand Slam winner.
Bum, bum, bum. Dum,
Or is
dum,
she?
Dum. Look, this is deviation to a whole new conversation that we can have.
Well, we have to tackle it now in case listeners turn off later, because it's such a big thing.
Which comes to the same question, isn't it? Why the hell did Wimbledon ban Russian and Belarusian players from the tournament? Which was a big shame. McEnroe did mention it. So what are your thoughts about her being from Kazakhstan, like you said?
Well,
back to you.
Well, she's 23 years old, isn't she? And I think she's been a Kazakhstan player for 4 years. So really, until she was 19, she was a Russian citizen. Kazakhstan, I think, offered her money to play for their country, which isn't uncommon. They do kind of offer money to top Russian players. But I think she came through Russian Training Academy. And I've got nothing against her at all for becoming a Kazakhstan player. She needs the money. She needed the funding probably to help her, buy the best coaches, have the best travel. But as you said earlier, I just think it shows up the futility of Wimbledon saying, we're not having any Russian players. We want to avoid the nightmare situation of Her Majesty Kate Middleclass presenting a trophy to a Russian player. But that's exactly what happened, really. I mean, where are you going to draw the line? Someone who changes nationality, there's still that Russian connection there,
and heart. Because
still that Russian connection,
you grow up somewhere and you belong somewhere
and
well.
You could have a Russian player condemning the war and saying, I think it's awful, I think Russia's attitude to it is awful, and yet they're still banned because they're Russian. And yet you could have a Russian becoming Kazakhstan and not condemning the war, who's allowed to play. Not that Rybakina was doing that, but that's rubbish. And it just got glossed over. The BBC didn't really mention it in commentary too much, apart from McEnroe. What I like about Rybakina is the modesty, not to everyone's taste, but when she won Wimbledon, there wasn't a massive celebration. I think there would have been if Ons Jabeur had won. I think she had her victory speech already.
There was almost no celebration.
Maybe that's why
incredible.
Rybakina won and Ons Jabeur lost, because Rybakina was not getting swept up in the emotion of it, whereas Jabeur was. But great player, very good. Reminded me of Sharapova when she first burst on the scene.
Well put.
The coolness, the determination, maybe a bit cooler under fire, but a similar game without the grunting.
It's true. Rybakina is a really watchable player and a really nice personality. I did watch the interviews, and she's so honest and so kind of into herself, but that helps in tennis very much so. So, you got a good
almost
point
a female Medvedev, with Medvedev's habit of not over-celebrating, not celebrating at all, underplaying big victories.
Exactly, and they are both raised in Russia.
They are, and one of them was allowed to play and another wasn't.
Ba-bam.
So, I mean, looking at the rest of the draw, really, I'm looking at the quarterfinals here, really. I remember the semi-final. I'd like to comment on that because that got a lot of praise. Ons Jabeur versus Tatiana Maria.
Yeah, Maria
I must say, I thought that was really some really poor tennis there. They were slicing it back and forth to each other. And people were saying, this is great, this is such variety. But I thought it was actually quite poor and didn't really stand on Shabur in very good stead for the final, where it was more power based.
Good point, because Rybakina definitely wiped her out in the second and the third. Although Jabeur did start well. Somehow, the emotions took over.
Yeah, it just
She
looked
couldn't
like
do
a
the
smooth.
same.
It looked like it'd be a smooth ascension for her.
Yeah,
But fair play to Rybakina. It was good. It was nice they had a 3-set final in the women's, although the
Very
last two
true.
sets were 6-2, 6-2. So I think it was a better final than the men's, actually.
definitely.
More unexpected, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
And a turnaround. There was definitely a twist there. Which
And it's a
I
good
didn't see coming.
turnaround, because I was actually supporting Rybakina. But you know what? It was interesting because Jabeur is the first African player to reach a Grand Slam final. And of course, that relates to me a little bit as well, because I come from there, not from the same country, but from the same continent. And I feel that it's good to have Africa join the club of finalists.
Yeah.
Another continent that was not there yet. But that didn't mean that I really wanted her to win. But because there's something about Rybakina that is more spectacular. And I have two players to mention. One of the most interesting matches was in the first round of the women's between Serena Williams and Tan.
Yeah.
So not only Serena, the, let's say, favorite for the best ever in history, she couldn't even pass the first round. Having said that, it was against Tan, which was, to me, the most delightful thing of the women's draw. Tan is a wonderfully beautiful player. Have you watched her play?
Yes, I saw her in that match. I was delighted by the result, of course.
Yeah, because you're against Serena, but what about her?
Describe her style, remind me.
It's unlike any other. It's just cartoony. She just creates magic. Bouncy, but
Power,
efficient.
not power.
She does have power too, but she doesn't use it a lot. Very strategic. Drop shots, moving the play around.
Yeah.
She really has a wonderful game. She was on fire after that win in 3 sets against Serena, which ended on a very dramatic tiebreak at the end. Who beat her? Do you remember?
I think she went
Maria?
out in the fourth round, possibly.
Oh, it was a shame. Watch out for her.
I will do, and of course there was some controversy, wasn't there? Because she withdrew from the women's doubles after beating Serena Williams. She said, I want to concentrate on the singles.
Who?
Tan. And Tan's partner was not happy. I've flown all this way.
That's never good.
For this date, and you stood me up.
That sucks. That puts a rock in what I just said about her.
You
It's a
take
shame.
back everything you said.
I'm so sorry for her, man.
Can't stand her.
So, tell me, overall, do you think it was one of the worst Wimbledons?
Yeah, I would
because
say.
of all the things that happened?
I would
all the
say
choices made.
It's losing its magic for me. It was always, to me, Wimbledon was my Christmas.
Okay.
And I approached it this year as my Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
I think I took a day off quite near the end to watch it. And then they rescheduled the match because Nadal was injured. So they showed the Djokovic-Norrie semi-final. Instead of 2 o'clock, they showed it at 4 o'clock. And I thought, I didn't actually need to take the day off then if they showed it at 4 o'clock.
True.
But I would say I'm just worried. I would blame one man for how Wimbledon's gone downhill, and his name is Tim Henman. He's come onto the committee, a former player, and a lot of these bad changes have happened since he's been on the committee.
You think it's his influence?
I think it's related. And not only is he on the committee, he's on the BBC, so they're not challenging these Wimbledon decisions. They're just going, oh, so tell us about this scheduling. Oh, why are less women's matches put on for the night match?
Yeah.
And they're not really giving the opposite view because he's there inhibiting the other commentators. They've even changed the entrance that the players come out on in centre court. Used to be a tradition they came out in a little side alley. Now the curtain comes back and it's like they're gladiators coming out.
Yeah.
That's great for other tournaments, but Wimbledon is not a gladiators arena. It's like a country club, and they should kind of keep it like that.
Yeah, and they also don't live the same way anymore.
No, they used to live together. That's been done away with some time ago, hasn't it? They have an on-court interview, which I think is just a complete colossal waste of time. Mm-hmm. Wimbledon court should be sacred ground. You play the match, you curtsy, and you get off. But now it's like, oh, tell me your favourite colour, and all the crowd laugh and stuff. And it's just, I think all these changes are changes for the worse. They're going to move the qualifying away from Roehampton and have it at Wimbledon, which will make Wimbledon even less special. They bought Wimbledon golf course and paid a lot of millionaires tens of thousands of pounds as compensation. I just think every change at Wimbledon seems to be a change for the worse these days. The tiebreak, as you said earlier.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say it's been the worst Wimbledon.
Oh wow!
For a long time.
Interesting. In a long time, exactly.
And the Russians, of course. Let's not forget the Russians.
Absolutely, I agree. All right, great rule change.
Right, rule change. Cue the music.
Talking about rule change. Talking about
You.
So my rule change, I might have mentioned it before, it's not so much a rule change as a kind of, for professional Grand Slams and tournaments, it's more of a rule change at a local level. When we played our grass match, the wooden rackets match, what I noticed when I stepped on the grass court was there were just tennis lines on the court. Whereas if you play on hard courts, nearly every hard court I've played on has kind of netball lines, yellow lines. I'm sure I've played on some courts which have parking lines on them, double yellow lines. And it's, leave our courts alone. They're for tennis. Don't put other lines on there.
Of course.
Just put the tennis lines on there. And to broaden that even more, keep tennis courts for tennis. You're putting other lines on there because you want to play netball, basketball, or practice your reverse parking on the court. But I say tennis courts are for tennis. I don't want to see footballers on there. I don't want to see people walking their dog on there. I don't want to see a picnic party on there. Tennis courts are for tennis. How would you like it if I came on your football pitch and had a knock up in the goalmouth with my mates? I wouldn't do that. So leave off our tennis courts. They're just for tennis.
Yep, I agree. And leaning on the nets and
that's another one.
It's you feel it's getting damaged, and you really don't want that to happen because you play on this court. Yeah, there are things that are definitely a shame and annoying. It's completely agreed with you with everything, but yeah, they're trying to make profit, aren't they? That's all about the profit. And will the money one day be the demise of the human race?
That's a whole different podcast, isn't it? We could talk about.
But anyway.
Have you got a rule change, David?
Yeah, so yours is agreed. Well, I can go very simple, actually. I never said this one and I've been wanting to. Or maybe I said and I forgot because, memory plays its tricks on your mind.
It does.
Mm-hmm. Am I supposed to say this rule change? Because my rule change is very early stage, but I want him to bring back the Grand Slams, endless, best of 2 games at the last set.
Yeah, so do I, yeah.
There's nothing else to say.
I think it's just the two of us. There's just the two of us.
I want
just
it back.
The two of us.
Bring it back, motherfuckers.
It's not coming back. That boat has sailed.
It's so early to already be decelebrating this. Unbelievable. So yeah, I guess we leave it at that. So thank you for coming. And one final word. I didn't say my opinion on Wimbledon. You said yours. I'm going to say mine. I am actually disappointed, like you. I have more hope that it can't go much worse than this, that it will go better next time. I know that you're seeing things grim, and I empathize with that, and I see them too. But I hope that they grow from these mistakes that they've made, and hopefully...
Well, I don't want to extend the episode, but there's a good chance the Ukraine-Russia war could still be going on
I know.
By the end of June 2023. So what's Wimbledon's position going to be there? Are they suddenly going to change?
Question.
If they change, will we all say, well, why did you ban them in 2022 if you're
boom!
letting them in there?
Exactly.
So watch this space.
Exactly. Definitely.
On that bombshell, I think it's time to say good night and free Boris.
Free Boris.
Becker.